Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Black Excellence Club podcast. My name is Security. I'm the host, and I'm on a journey from unknown to unforgettable. I'm sorry, I was trying to remember my intro. And today I have with me El-Elyon.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast interview, actually, so
Awesome,
I'm excited.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am an attorney. I'm from the UK, but I'm licensed in New York, only because at the time, with the journey that I was going through, that's what made sense at the time.
Okay.
I haven't actually moved to New York, but I'm able to work remotely, which is something that I've always wanted to do, have freedom of location. So although I don't live there, I have the opportunity to work from anywhere. So
Okay, because that was actually one of my questions, is why aren't you licensed in the UK?
So I actually have been practicing in the UK since 2014.
Okay.
I had been given permission from judges. So I was doing family law before. So I was representing clients in family law cases. And my most recent case was last year. But I started to wean out on those because I wanted to go a different path. I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to work within the organization I was working with anymore because I just wanted to go a different path. So in the UK, I do family law, but because I don't really want to do family law anymore, that's why I'm focusing on my license in the US.
Okay. So what license is it that you hold in the US?
So it's an attorney's license. So I had to, basically, it was a long process to get qualified. So because I went to law school in the UK, they deemed me as a foreign educated person. So I had to get permission. I had to go through, it was just such a long process. But then they said I could take the bar exam. So the bar exam was the only hurdle. No, there were 3 exams I had to take so I could qualify in New York specifically. But it just took much longer than I expected. Okay. So I thought it was going to be really quick, really easy, and just like a quick loophole, get qualified in the States and then just move there, work there. But it was such a long journey. So it wasn't as smooth sailing as I thought. Now, thankfully, I'm there. But yeah, it was a lot.
So was it worth the wait?
It was definitely worth the wait. I think also one key part was that I learned so much along the way. So the journey was a very up and down journey. There was so many disappointments, so many just different things that I went through in terms of passing the exam. So it took me 5 attempts to pass the bar exam in the US. Each time so the first time I just underestimated it because it's very different to the bar exam in the UK.
Okay.
Then after that, I was always 1 or 2 marks off. And I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, what is it? I spent over $12,000. I stopped calculating at $12,000 on bar prep materials, taking all these courses. And then it was just a long journey. And I realized it wasn't so much because I didn't know the law, because I knew the law. I just couldn't quite adapt to the US style of testing or the bar exam style of testing in the US. So it took me a very long time, but through everything that I learned, I made so many mistakes along the way. That is what allowed me to start teaching others how to pass, because it's I went through almost every mistake you could ever think of. I went through it so many times that I just had so much experience that I can now guide others. When I have a student come to me, I can spot instantly and relate to them because I was that was me on attempt number 3. This is what you need to change. So it definitely has helped me become a better teacher because I went through the mistakes myself. So
what exactly is your business?
So it was November last year, I opened a law firm and I specialize in trademarks. So this is a solo, just me. A lot of people think I was crazy because with the qualifications and experience I had in the UK and then with the license I got in the US, most people would expect me to just go and work for this big, a corporate firm. I've worked in corporate before, didn't want to do it again. So I was let me take the plunge. And it was from being in things like the morning meetup, having different people around me, that I realized, I can literally open my own firm and just work from anywhere because it's something that I can do. With trademarks, you can it can apply to all states. So I don't have to be restricted to New York. Any state, I can serve anybody there because it's a federal law. So I was like, let me just try a thing. And if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to keep looking for jobs.
Right.
And I was having like job offers like along the way because my family really wanted me to keep applying. But like secretly, inwardly, I knew that's not what I wanted to do. I had gotten to the stage where I was like, I can do this. It took almost a year. So I got licensed in April 2022. And then I said I was going to do it immediately. And then I didn't actually launch until November because I had to keep talking myself like into it. Like, okay, this is going to be big. It's going to be hard. But I think it's going to be worth it. And I definitely think it's worth it. So.
Okay. So what influenced you into becoming a lawyer?
Well, truthfully, my mom's a lawyer, and my family used to tell me that I always had something to say back in response. Like I was always trying to argue a case. So they pretty much said, if you don't do law, I don't know what else you will do. I actually wanted to go into engineering. That's like what I was really interested in, but everyone around me was like, no, you need to do law. Like, you always have these points to make. You always want a rebuttal. This was when I was younger. So I got into it, but I went to university when I was just after I turned 16. Okay. No, I had just turned 17. And because of that, I was restricted in where I could go. I needed to go somewhere where they would allow me to get parental consent to attend the university, because in the UK it's 18. And that, I still like the place that I went. I feel like where I went was a good place for me. But it definitely, I feel like I didn't learn the things I really needed to learn during law school, which is why I then decided at an early stage to start tutoring people in the law and helping them, because there are so many things they don't tell you when you're just starting out. And if I knew, all I did was like, everyone says, go do law. So I went to go do law, but then it wasn't really my forte. I didn't like reading, hated reading. Couldn't read until I was like 7 or 8. I was in like special ed. They said I have dyslexia. So reading was the last thing I wanted to do. Right. But they were like, you make a good like argument all the time. So I went into it. I did deviate a bit. I went into corporate doing like some analyst work, but then came back to it. So I'm sorry, I think I can't remember the question that you asked.
What influenced you into law?
Yeah, so I would say my mum, and then also with family law, I stuck to it for a long time because I was really able to help people, really able to be there for people. The only thing is it's a lot, like you're taking on everyone's issues. I would go home thinking about what's going to happen with this case, what's going to happen with that case. You're up all night reading through like statements, paperwork, cases. So I can definitely say the urge to help people. And now it's kind of translated or moved over to helping small business owners, helping people understand their rights. A lot of people don't know their rights, don't know how to protect their interests. And so now I'm like committed to like giving people game on what they need to be doing, at least where, as long as I can help, then yeah.
Okay. What was your experience entering the workforce as a Black woman?
Oh, goodness me. I have some stories. Well, you'd think in the UK it wouldn't be as bad. Unfortunately, it can be. There were so many times where I would go into court representing a client, and the other side, so most of the other side would be so the opposing counsel would be a white male. That's like the standard, or the majority, I would say. And they would see me, and sometimes my client would be a white male. And they would look at the both of us and think he was the lawyer and I was the client, or I was the court usher. One lawyer once got so like riled up, he came to me and said, I have no right to be speaking to the client without the lawyer present. And he thought I was like the court staff or something.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, no, I'm his lawyer. And he found it so hard to accept, to the point where he was so rude to me throughout the whole case. He was being very abrupt, cutting me off, and the judge actually told him off. It's rare that you see that, where a judge will actually step in as well. But I've had a lot of experiences where either they don't want to take you seriously, or they just, instead of working together to come to a resolution on a case, they will fight you like you're the opposition. Like, I know with family law, I feel like it's a thing where you need to work together to find a solution, especially where children are involved.
Right.
Whereas when they see like a young black woman, another thing was, because I wasn't married, people would see me as, well, what do you know? You have no kids, you're not married. And I was younger as well. And then I was black and I was a female. So it was just so many things where...
Going against you.
Yeah. And that was another part where sometimes I would dread going into court, because walking through the halls, you just see all these eyes just looking at you, and you can tell they're judging. And it takes a lot of like mental strength to keep going, especially in a place where you're trying to like step up in the ranks. And also where most of my peers, people that I went to law school with, were also, I felt like they had an advantage because they were white, male or female. So I tried not to make that like a thing, because I had a lot of great friends who were supportive no matter what color they were. But in the professional world, it was just, and like certain hairstyles, they'll be looking at you, they'll be asking questions, asking to touch it. You'd think in a professional courtroom setting, or...
So hold on, in a courtroom they're asking to touch your hair?
I've had one lawyer ask to touch my hair, and it was braids at the time. And she was like, oh goodness, wow. And it's like, she was fascinated, but she was confused. And she was looking, because the week before she must have seen me and my hair was probably out. So she's confused. She's looking at me and I'm like, well, and she said, wow, can I touch it? But she didn't even wait for me to respond. She just proceeded to touch it. So how does this work then? And then she's calling like other people to come and have a look, like on some circus show. It's like stuff like that.
Wow.
Honestly, I never dwelled on it. I would literally just let it go, because if I did, there's no way I can show up for my client, do the best I can do for them if I'm thinking about something that's just happened to me. Sometimes I feel like being in the legal career, you have to be very selfless. You have to literally always think of, okay, why am I here? What is my client like here for? What do they need? How can I best serve their interests? You have to put a lot of your personal feelings or anything behind. Yeah, it could be a lot.
That is a lot. Sorry, I actually have these questions written up for you. I lied, I'm sorry. This is just based off of your questionnaire, some things that you have mentioned. What drove you to leave the corporate and open your own firm?
I feel like I was scarred by the corporate world, and not just in the courts, but in like these firms that I worked in. In a global team, I was one, and I don't want to make everything about like race, because that's not the driving thing, but if you step back, you can see that people, okay, I'll forget race for a second. I think the main thing was me as a person within a global team. I was the only black person, but aside from that, I was putting so much work into everything I was doing. If I was given a task, I would go above and beyond, make sure it was done. But not getting the right kind of, not so much recognition, but even credit, or it's like anything I was doing was just like, oh, okay, people would be surprised. My bosses were always surprised when I was able to complete a task in like less of a time that was assigned, or they were always pleasantly surprised, but then it became a problem. So if I was finishing tasks too quickly, they would think I didn't spend enough time on it. There was something wrong. I hadn't put enough effort into it, until they went back and checked. And they're like, oh, okay, well, the timeline. So I was basically having to slow down. I was basically having to like underperform so that I wouldn't stand out as being someone who excelled. And I'm thinking, I'm like bending my back for these people. I'm doing everything I can. They're getting amazing results. And because of that, they were over utilizing me. They were making me do things that were not on my job description, but I wasn't seeing a reflection in the pay, but like, you know. So I was like, well, if all that time, effort, energy, even money I put into like transporting into work, if I put that into my own business, like surely something will come of it. Surely I won't fail if I have the same amount of energy I can put into this big corporate company to do well, to the point where they can't do certain meetings without me. If I put that same amount of energy into my own business, then like surely I would get some kind of results. So I think that was like the driving thing. I'm like, I'm giving them too much. They're not seeing me for what I'm doing, and I could do this for myself. So that's when I started my tutorial company. Okay. And then last year was when I opened the firm. So.
Okay, nice. So how did you deal with any setbacks you may have encountered throughout that journey?
I would say up until the point where I started reading, again, I didn't really read anything outside of law books, law cases, until I joined the morning meetup. And that was early 2021, I want to say. And the books that we were reading. So these are the things, especially like most of my setbacks were either fear related or me being worried about what might happen. And I think it was Freedom from Your Fears by Napoleon Hill. And it talked about how most fears are unfounded. They're like they're based on things that are in our head that haven't even happened yet. So things like that would remind me that, okay, the only reason why I'm scared, maybe I'm scared to fail. Maybe I'm scared that I might be so successful and then I do something to mess it up. So just starting to read the right kind of literature, just being around the right people, I had to surround myself with people who were also on an entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a lot of people, and I know they mean well, but a lot of people want me to just go into a big corporate firm with a name on it and say, yeah, I work there. But then I had to surround myself around people who are also out here trying to build something from the ground up or make an impact through their own companies, businesses, whatever. So just surrounding myself with the right people, reading the right things, listening to the right things, I would say that's what helped. I can never say it was easy.
Right.
Sometimes it's like, I feel like a lot of the battle was in our own minds. And so it would literally have to be me talking myself out of whatever, negative thing I was thinking.
Okay. So I'm sorry. You spoke about people knowing their rights earlier. So what is some things that we should know as small business owners?
Okay, so one of my favorite tips, I would say, is to know that every contract is negotiable. You can negotiate every contract. People so I've had a lot of clients where they get this contract, maybe they're excited because it's like a big company, a big firm, I have this contract, but then the terms aren't really favorable. So if you're presented with a contract and you're looking at the terms and you're like, I don't like this, I don't like that, but then you're thinking, well, I guess I just have to sign it. That's never the case. You can literally take it apart term by term. The whole point of the contract is to serve your interests. You want it to favor you, they want it to favor them, especially if you're providing a service. If it's to do with costs, if it's to do with any kind of compensation, you can always go back and say, thank you very much for this contract. I've read through the terms. Some of the points I'd like to renegotiate are point 7. I would like to change this to that. So basically you can propose any changes you want. Sometimes they won't take it, sometimes they will, sometimes you'll meet halfway in the middle and you'll be better off than if you just see it and sign it. Yeah. So unless it's like standard terms and conditions for a company, even still, there's no harm in asking. But especially with service providers, service agreements, you always have room to negotiate. I've done it before for friends, for clients. And one of my clients she was a friend / client. They were offering her 5,000 and in the end we got 12,000. All because we asked. We said, well, this is what I'm doing. It's only fair if you compensate me this much. And we thought it would be a big back and forth. The next email was, yeah, sure. Here's the new contract. So always remember that if you have something, you can always negotiate the terms, I would say. And then look out for contracts that have words like perpetual, perpetuity, things that are like forever. You never want to put yourself in a contract that lasts forever. You always want to give yourself room to reassess. So if it's a 3-month term, a 6-month term, you know that, okay, maybe I've worked with this person for 6 months. I didn't really like certain things. So in the next contract, I'm going to change some of the terms and then we're going to renew it based on the new terms. Or if your price goes up, then this is a whole new contract. Whereas if you're into a contract forever, then it's going to be hard to, obviously there should be termination, like points where you can cancel, but just looking out for things like this is a contract that lasts forever, or perpetual rights to like whatever's going on, or exclusive rights, things like that. So I think just always reading the terms of every agreement, because people, you'll be surprised, they put some sneaky things in there. Yeah, no,
Like,
always
so
read the
you're not
terms.
smart.
Exactly.
I really do.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about your business.
Okay, so I register trademarks for mainly small businesses, I should say. It's quite a simple process. It's with the US Trademark Office. However, I can also do global trademarks. So if you want to protect it just within the US, that's one thing. Some people have to go as far as protecting it in other countries too. So far, most of my clients are based in the US because I'm licensed there. And so I basically will help a client register a trademark. So whether it's their business name, their logo, a slogan. I have one who's a comedian who's like registering a punchline that he uses often. So you can trademark things like names, slogans, phrases, words, sentences. It could be a number of things. So that's what I've been focusing on mainly. I also do contract review, things like just explaining. Sometimes people have the contract, they don't want to read the fine print, but I love reading the fine print. I'm like, if you want to pay me to read the fine print, that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I live for. So just explaining things to people. Sometimes they just need someone to explain it like they're five. So I do contract review with clients as well. And I will be expanding. I do copyright. I would like to expand to do like patents and stuff, but that's another license. I'm not sure if I want to study again for a while. So right now, that's what I'm sticking to. So, yeah.
Okay. So what does the average price of trademarking look like? Not including your fees, just trademarking in general.
Okay, so the standard price with the US Trademark Office is $250 per application.
Okay.
It can double if you have more than one class. So basically, the trademarks are put into various classes. So if it's a good, say you sell T-shirts and apparel, that would be class 25, just to say, well, this is what I'm using my trademark in. And so if you want to do it, one for like T-shirts and another for, let's say, okay, so most clothing is class 25. If you wanted accessories, I think it's class 16. So that's another class. You would have to pay the trademark office another, they say $225, but I think it's been updated to $250 for both classes as well. So, no, it's $225. Sorry, yeah. That's like the base fee. And then you've got people online. Prices for like lawyers vary. You can have someone like very low end, like $50, but it might not include the things like searching. Searching before you trademark is the most important part, because so many applications can get rejected, and they do get rejected because the person didn't do enough due diligence to go and look. Like, okay, if my brand is called like Apple, for example, and it has nothing to do with Apple, but it's maybe a technology brand. Say I didn't know that Apple existed, and I went to try and register that trademark. The examining attorney is immediately going to be like, well, no, because they don't want customers to be confused as to the source of the goods. It's like, is this Apple, or is this another Apple? So Apple has the rights to that because that's their name. And they've registered it in so many ways. You can register trademarks in
every category, can't you?
Yeah, and that's what they've done. Like, if you go, I love like going through and seeing what people have registered. And they have so many, people like Samsung have so many, because they do things from like phones to fridges to TVs. So they have to register it in different classes to protect themselves across the board. And then you've got people like Starbucks, even if they are like not in doing it in different classes, they'll have different variations of their trademark. So they have Starbucks as a word, then they have Starbucks as a logo, then they have the logo with the Starbucks. Same with Nike. They've done Nike on its own. Then they've done the swoosh thingy on its own. And then they've done Nike and the swoosh together, just to protect themselves in like as broad as possible. Yeah. So the prices I see, like some people charge up to 2,000, like 2,500. Some people more like in between.
That's for the whole process or per hour?
For the whole, everyone does it differently.
Okay.
And there are like these like trademark agents who aren't attorneys. I don't know about that. Because if you're doing, you can either do it yourself or have an attorney do it for you.
Right.
So when I'm doing it for my clients, my name is on the record.
Okay.
If the trademark office write back and say, we need more clarification, we need more proof that you're using this as your trademark, I would deal with that communication. I don't know how well another like trademark agency that aren't attorneys would be able to deal with those responses. And then if it goes as far as going to the appeal board, you may have to have like an actual hearing. So the best thing you would want is an attorney to be able to represent you.
Okay.
So I think some of them, like I said, don't include the searches. And searches can be very like long, especially with logos. With logos, you have to look at their design codes. So each like shape, so let's say the apple would have its own design code, like these numbers. So you'd have to look up every logo that had that design code to see what may be similar. And I just like to do all of this up front, because the last thing I want is to not do that and then they come back and say it's too similar to something that's already in there. Okay. So yeah, it's enjoyable to me though. As long as my clients give me all the information I ask for, then I can go and do my research. And then the only problem is the trademark office wait is currently like 8 to 10 months. So even though the application could be done in a day, an hour, a week, the actual waiting process is quite long. So
that's very long.
Yeah, they are. I guess there was a surge where everybody just wanted to trademark stuff. So now they're working with a backlog. So
I can believe that, because I feel like that became popular in like 2021.
Yeah.
Like that's where a lot of people was talking about, you need a trademark, you need a trademark, you need a trademark. And then I feel like some people just trademarking stuff just to trademark it.
Yeah. And then if it's not actually being used in business, or you don't have a good faith intent to use it in business, they can turn it down. So if you go through the trademark register, you'll see so many trademarks that are dead, not because they haven't been renewed, but either because they were cancelled, abandoned, maybe withdrawn. Because if the trademark office come back to you with an office action saying, we need more information before we can allow you to register this, a lot of people almost can't prove the point, like they can't give that information because it wasn't really a good faith intent to start using it in commerce, or they haven't been, they just wanted to trademark it, and then it just gets cancelled out, or abandoned. So there's a lot of names in the trademark database, but if you look at what's live and what's dead, there are so many that are just dead, mainly abandoned because they weren't able to provide that information.
So how long does a trademark last for?
10 years in the US.
So every 10 years you have to renew?
Yeah. So if you don't renew it, and I see there's one trademark I'm watching, it's like on its 9th year. And so they send out a notice that when they have to renew it. So I'm curious to see if they will remember, because clearly it was 10 years ago they registered it. When people stop using it as a trademark, they pay less attention to it. If they miss the period and the grace period, then it becomes open for somebody else to register. So people sometimes like trademark watch to see, but honestly, I think they had a 6-year one before, and now it's 10 years. So that's
I heard that. Where was I? No, I was listening to one of the Social Proof podcasts. I think Donnie was talking about, she was doing an event and the name that she had was too similar to an event that's been a name that's been trademarked. So she was saying, like, you know how they have ambulance chasers, like attorneys? Yeah. She was saying, like, there's basically that for trademarks as well. So she basically almost got like a cease and desist from this so-called lawyer or whoever that was just, oh, you're trying to register this, like, or you're promoting this, but while this name is already being used, you can't do this.
Exactly.
So that's interesting.
So like business owners, for people, it does give, if that was like her trademark, it would give her protection from somebody else using it. So if you really care about the business and you know it's going to grow and you don't want people like trying to infringe on your rights or your reputation or do like knockoffs, because if your brand is doing really well, you've got great customer reviews, everybody loves what you're doing, and then some other company comes with a similar name and people think they're affiliated, and one, say they have really bad service as compared to the service your company provides.
So it's giving you a bad name.
Yeah, people might affiliate the two and think you're connected. And then apart from that, if people don't realize that they're two different brands but just similar names, you could be losing your clients to these people, these knockoffs, because they think it's the same thing, and they're giving your money to these people. So having your trademark protected allows you to immediately send that cease and desist letter to be like, no, you can't, and they have to abide by it. So.
Yeah. And then like with that particular instance, she was saying something along what was registered. Mind you, the names were different; they were just similar, right? But they were in different categories. So either way, technically, if she wanted to use it, she could have used it. So that's where I suppose trademarking in each category comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
For that
Different
safety.
Yeah, because if it's in the same, you're more likely to have multiple trademarks with the same name, but have them in different classes. Because if one of them's selling kitchenware and the other one is doing events, it's going to be hard for clients to confuse that.
Right.
Is this the same people? So it's mainly just to protect people from having like confusingly similar things, especially within the same category. So yeah, that's a good point.
Have you seen anyone? Have you had to send any cease and desist?
Not yet. But I've had somebody who's registering a trademark. We will probably have to send out cease and desists once her trademark is registered, because there's somebody who's been using a name similar, but this person, we don't know the actual person, but they have been using like almost like, you know, those like people who copy people's pages and stuff, but this person's been very active. They're making it not exactly the same, but similar. So they are, and like actively like copying the things she's doing. Wow. And it's like a friend of a friend of a friend. So I'm like,
a lot to try and do that.
Yeah. So I think it's because her idea is so great. So once it's officially registered, that cease and desist is going straight to her, because it is very similar and it's easy to get confused, and that's the whole point. So I haven't yet. I'm still very early on, but I'm going to be offering that as like a standalone service, not just for my clients, but maybe people who've already registered their trademarks. Okay. And then, yeah, I'll do it that way.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you'd like to discuss?
I would just say, this is not really like an answer to a question, but just a leaving note to say that business owners really want to protect their business in any way they can. So the best way to do that is to, one, like really pay attention to the details of everything, whether it's an agreement, a conversation. Just always pay attention to the details, and then always have those details in writing. I'm a big advocate for having everything in writing and detailed as well. You can still have contracts that are enforceable, like verbal ones. Some of them can stand in most categories, but then it's just so much easier if you have it like solidified in writing in black and white, signed by both people, just to protect you. And then the other thing I would say, if you really don't know, just seek legal advice. There are tons of people who do free consultations. I do free consultations, even just like not just relying on Google alone, but just being proactive to figure things out while they're still small, because you can end up wasting so much time and money in the long run if you allow something to escalate to the point where now there's like big legal proceedings, or you're in more trouble than you realized. Not just that business owners get in trouble, but sometimes being mixed with the wrong people. If you don't do your due diligence, and that's the last thing I'll say, do your research before you like go into business with anyone. People change, but then if you do your research, you'll know whether it's worth going into business with that person in the first place. Make sure you've got social proof, as Dave always says. Make sure you can see testimonials, speak to people, feel it out before you go and like put it in writing and sign anything. So just being very like, I don't want to say, it's not fearful, it's more just like taking caution, just being wise. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so what advice would you give to 18-year-old you about what you're doing now?
Oh, what advice would I give to 18-year-old me? I'm trying to see where she was at. Okay, so I would say just don't get discouraged. there are going to be, like, even if there are hard times, even if things seem scary or seem too big, like, just take everything, like, take a bold step towards everything you're doing. Don't allow fear to hold you back. I think 18-year-old me had a lot of fear holding her back from so many things. Fear of criticism, fear of failure, fear of just unnecessary fear that I can see now. So it's not as scary as you think it is. I'll tell you that it's not as scary. It's a lot of work, but the hard work is very character building. It's very rewarding, and it's allowing you, or it will allow you to help so many people who are coming up behind you. So don't give up. Don't be discouraged, and don't be afraid. I think that's what I would say.
All right. That's very good advice. So what advice would you give to our listeners on entrepreneurship?
So the advice I would give would be back to just being, like, make sure you are minding the business that pays you in terms of your business, your company. Treat it like your baby. Don't allow anyone to just step in and tell you what to do. Yes, get coaching. Yes, get advice. But where it comes to the legal aspects, where it comes to things like doing your research on another company, where it comes to things like getting into agreements with people, just go in with your eyes wide open. There's no such thing as doing too much research, or maybe there's things like where you're delaying things and procrastinating. That's one thing, but more specifically, the thing to do is to make sure that whoever you're going into business with is going to help you, uplift you, and just help your business excel, as opposed to just jumping on wagons or trends. I would not advise people to just jump on trends because they see everybody's doing it, unless you know it's actually going to benefit you. And then always seek advice. Always, like, sometimes you may not realize the gravity of a situation without actually speaking to someone. Sometimes you might think a situation is bigger than it actually is. If you need to seek legal counsel, just do that for your peace of mind and for your business's peace of mind. So yeah, just be very diligent in what you're doing. Focus on, like, being proactive. I would say don't just leave things to start when it's, like, worse and then you're calling for help.
Right.
Just be proactive and put the things in place. Always put everything in writing. Verbal conversations are great. Even if it's your friends, even if it's your family, still put it in writing, because that just seals the deal, and it's easier to navigate if anything goes wrong in the future.
Right.
God, hopefully not, but yeah.
So what's next for you and your business?
What's next for me? I think I'm going to have to start hiring soon. Okay. So I teach people how to pass the bar exam, and I'm hoping that when they're done, they can come in as interns in my company, and then that gives them actual experience. So if they do want to go to a big corporate firm, they have, like, a stepping stone and, like, actual like physical training from me, and then expanding to different areas. I would like to do, like, a course on how to trademark for people who want to do it themselves. It's like a done with you thing, just to help them. So if you are going to do it yourself, I would at least like to have a step by step without missing any detail, because there's so many little details that people miss. So I want to just keep educating people. I've been doing a lot of talks at, like, people's challenges and workshops within communities, and I really enjoy that because I'm educating business owners. Even if they can't afford to have, like, a lawyer on retainer, at the very least, they're going to have some education on what they should be looking out for in their businesses. So I think I would like to really expand that part, the educational portion. Like, I don't just want to help people by providing legal services. I also want to educate them where they can, so that they just have their own knowledge to walk around with and kind of know what's what.
Okay. So what will you say to your future self 5 years from now? So you're going to come back and watch this in 5 years' time, and this is what you told yourself.
Okay, so to my future self, I'm going to say, well, congratulations. I know the future me would have just kept on going. The 18-year-old me was, like, crippled with fear. The me now is taking bold steps, and I know that the bold steps I'm taking now is going to allow future me to, like, just keep on thinking big, keep expanding. Don't get complacent. Don't just, don't get laid back. Just keep doing the things you have to do to impact people. And don't get discouraged. Don't get distracted. and don't get complacent. But congratulations.
All right. And lastly, where do you see yourself in your business in 5 years' time?
Where do I see myself and my business in 5 years' time? I see myself like with a global footprint, like not just, obviously I'm from the UK. I want to be able to help students who want to do what I did and like have dual qualifications or I think I'm going to keep on building on the educational part for the students, especially working with minority students because the percentage is like really low for minority student lawyers or minority lawyers. So I want to keep expanding that number, keep working with especially young women to like build their confidence. A lot of it is in like mindset, like it can be mentally tough on the journey to becoming an attorney. So I think I will definitely have expanded that, and then I will have like a physical office in New York, one in London. Just I think I will be like on the go. Like I want to be anywhere in the world, still helping people, having that freedom of movement. And so I will definitely have trained up a lot of lawyers through my firm to either stay and help me expand or go out and be great. But yeah, I think that's the plan.
All right. And do you have any questions for me?
So as a business owner yourself, what would you say have been like, this is just random, like your struggles? Like, do you think, or what has helped you through your struggles in like your journey?
What has helped me through my struggles? Thinking about the end, thinking about where I'm trying to get, not the right now, but where, and the impact that I'm trying to make. I think that's what gets me through it.
Yeah, that's really good. I love it.
Any other questions?
I can't think of any, no.
Okay. All right. Oh, El-Elyon, I really do appreciate you for coming through to the Black Excellence Club podcast. And yeah, that's another episode. My name is Sakudini. I am the host, and I am on a journey from unknown to unforgettable. And again, thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.